The early evening light was beginning to fade over London, casting long shadows across the majestic facade of Buckingham Palace. It was March 20th, 1974, and the city was going about its usual business, unaware that within the hour, a sequence of events would unfold that would forever change the way the British royal family was protected. Inside a maroon and black Austin limousine, Princess Anne, the Queen's only daughter, sat alongside her husband of 4 months, Captain Mark Phillips. At just 23 years old, the princess was already known for her equestrian prowess and no-nonsense attitude, a reputation that was about to be tested in a way no one could have foreseen. They were returning to the palace after a long day attending a charity event, a routine journey through the familiar streets they had traveled countless times before. The mood inside the car was relaxed, the conversation likely mundane, a stark contrast to the chaos that was lurking just around the corner. And as the limousine turned onto the Mall, the grand processional route leading directly to the palace, the atmosphere was calm. The chauffeur, Alex Callender, a seasoned police driver, navigated the tree-lined avenue with practiced ease. In the front passenger seat sat Inspector James Beaton, the princess's personal protection officer. He was a relatively new addition to the team, having been appointed to the role just 5 months prior, on the very day of the royal wedding. The Scotland Yard man, with his Aberdeenshire burr and quiet demeanor, scanned the surroundings out of habit, his eyes moving from pedestrian to passing car, a ritual that was second nature. Yet, there was no heightened sense of alert. In 1974, the security surrounding the royals, while present, was nowhere near the fortress-like operation it is today. There were no chase cars, no advanced convoy tactics, just a single limousine making its way home. This air of normalcy was about to be shattered by a man whose twisted plans would test the very fabric of royal security. The peace of the evening was violently ripped apart by the sudden screech of tires. A white Ford Escort, which had been parked on a side street, swerved out directly into the path of the royal limousine, forcing Callender to stand on the brakes to avoid a catastrophic collision. Before anyone inside could process what was happening, but a young man leapt from the Ford and strode towards them with a purpose that froze the blood. In his hand, he brandished a pistol. This was Ian Ball, a 26-year-old with a delusional plan, convinced he could kidnap the princess and hold her for a £3 million ransom, money he bizarrely intended to donate to the National Health Service. Time seemed to slow down as Ball reached the car. He didn't hesitate. He raised his weapon and fired directly at Inspector Beaton, the first shot tearing into the protection officer as he valiantly tried to exit the vehicle to shield the princess. The quiet evening on the Mall had erupted into a scene of brutal, shocking violence, the echoes of gunfire bouncing off the stately buildings. Chaos descended in an instant. As Inspector Beaton crumpled to the ground, having been shot 3 times in the chest, stomach, and hand, his own weapon tragically jammed, leaving him defenseless. Chauffeur Alex Callender, showing immense bravery, also attempted to intervene, and was shot for his trouble, a bullet wound adding him to the growing list of casualties. Ball then turned his attention to the rear of the limousine. He wrenched open the door behind which the princess and her husband were sheltering. Inside, Captain Phillips was doing everything he could to shield his wife, holding on to her as Ball reached in, demanding she come with him. "Come with me for a day or 2, he snarled. "But not bloody likely." It was a moment of not bloody likely. It was a moment of defiance that would become the stuff of legend. Even as Ball tried to physically drag her from the car, she resisted, engaging in a fierce tug-of-war that ripped her favorite blue velvet dress. The scene was a surreal mix of high-stakes drama and absurdity, and a princess fighting off a delusional gunman with nothing but sheer force of will. Just as Ball seemed on the verge of overpowering them, fate intervened in the form of ordinary citizens who displayed extraordinary courage. A taxi had pulled up behind the blocked limousine, its passenger, Brian McConnell, a tabloid journalist. Realizing what was happening, McConnell didn't flee. Instead, he jumped out and rushed towards Ball, trying to intervene. He was met with a hail of gunfire, as a bullet striking him and adding him to the injured. At almost the same moment, Police Constable Michael Hills, who had been on duty at St. James's Palace, heard the commotion and sprinted towards the scene. He, too, was shot down by the relentless Ball. It seemed that anyone who dared to challenge him would be met with deadly force. Then, from the other direction, came a man named Ron Russell. A former heavyweight boxer, Russell was walking home from work when he saw the struggle. Out of his head, momentarily dazing him. It was the opening the police needed. Detective Constable Peter Edmonds, who had also arrived on the scene, seized the chance and, after a short chase through St. James's Park, finally tackled Ball to the ground and placed him under arrest. In the space of a few terrifying minutes, 4 men lay bleeding on the pavement, but the princess was safe. In the immediate aftermath, the scene on the Mall was one of controlled pandemonium. Police swarmed the area, tending to the wounded and cordoning off the crime scene. Amidst the shattered glass and the bloodstains, Princess Anne and Captain Mark Phillips, though badly shaken, were physically unharmed. The princess's first thoughts, characteristically, were not for herself, but for the men who had been shot trying to protect her. And she issued a brief statement before leaving for her home in Sandhurst, expressing her deep concern for the injured. Inspector Beaton acted particularly bravely, and although shot, he continued to protect us, she said, her words a testament to the horror they had just witnessed. The attack had failed, but its impact was immediate. That very night, an armed cordon was thrown around Sandhurst, and the security protocols for the entire royal family were placed under a microscope. The days of informal, low-key protection were over. The attack on Princess Anne was a brutal wake-up call, signaling that the monarchy was now a target in a dangerous new world. The aftermath of that night reverberated for decades. Ian Ball was deemed mentally ill and detained indefinitely in the high-security psychiatric hospital Broadmoor, where he remained for decades before being quietly released under strict conditions in 2019. The 4 injured men all survived and were rightly hailed as heroes. In a special investiture, the Queen personally thanked them, awarding them for their gallantry. Inspector James Beaton received the George Cross, the highest civilian award for bravery. The others received the George Medal or the Queen's Gallantry Medal. For Princess Anne, the incident became a defining part of her public persona. The image of her telling a gunman, "Not bloody likely," cemented her reputation as the no-nonsense, a resilient royal, a woman of steely courage under fire. Her father, the Duke of Edinburgh, later joked that if Ball had succeeded in taking her, she would have given him a hell of a time in captivity. The events of March 20th, 1974, changed the royal family forever. It was the day the last vestiges of royal innocence were lost, and the day the modern, highly professional system of royal protection was born, all because of the bravery of a princess and the ordinary people who stood between her and a bullet.